Good afternoon, guys. Gonna start a series on making your own teepee. I've thought about doing this for quite some time, just finally getting around to it, I guess. So want to put out a few videos in this series. Some of the things we're going to talk about. We'll go over the pattern today, hopefully get one cut out here. I've picked up a painter's drop cloth from Home Depot for 20 something dollars, pretty cheap. I believe it's 8-ounce canvas. So there's things we need to do to that. So we'll talk about the pattern again, hopefully get that cut out. It's going to be a lot of sewing involved. I'll spare you guys most of that, but I'll show you, key points hopefully as I go there. I plan on using natural dyes. I want to dye this thing. Then we're going to get into waterproofing it, and then obviously the setup. So, and then all the stuff that goes along with it as far as the inside and the liner and stuff like that. So let me show you a couple different teepee styles, and obviously there was a bunch of different ones depending on the tribe and their beliefs and customs, things of that nature, on how they actually set theirs up. So one of the normal ones, obviously just your standard triangle, a little door. And then the one that we're going to attempt together is steep on one side and a little drawn out on the other with the door. And what that does for you, obviously it saves space on the inside, so you have more living space, more space to put things, and keep you out of the weather next to the door. We will put a cover on ours, a door as well, but just saves you a lot more room on the inside, spot for your fire, and still have room enough to put other things and for sleeping as well. So that's the one we're going to try out. So let's talk about the pattern for a second. Pretty straightforward. All a teepee really is a half a circle, so it's not too complicated. And the theory I came up with on how to get the teepee style that we're going to go with was just simple reasoning, I guess. But so really what you have is a semicircle. Try to get that a little darker for you guys. And I'm no artist, so bear with me. So basically your radius, or half of your circle, is going to make up the diameter of your teepee on the inside, the footprint anyways. So what I've seen in looking over patterns is you'll get this traced out, however you go about doing that. On one side you're going to cut out a spot for a door, do the same thing on the other side, and when you bring that around, obviously they meet up and it gives you that circle area for the door. That's one style of teepee. I believe it was the Crow Indians used just a A for the door in the front of theirs, and you can put a door on that, just as easy. But so you get your two doors. Then what you're going to need above and beyond that, where you see the stitching pins going up the center there to the ridge, you're going to need a flap of some sort there that connects that. So you need a little bit more material there, as well as on the other side for your flaps that run up the middle for your stitching pins to close up the teepee. And then you need another one that creates the baffles, or whatever you want to call that. It's basically the up by the smoke hole that's going to let the smoke out and allow your teepee to draft. So smoke flaps, or whatever you want to call that. So basically they're going to be a little bit bigger, come right to the center and down like that, and this will get cut in the middle, obviously, to allow them to be separated. So pretty basic, simple pattern there. Again, what I've come up with for simple reasoning to get that lean in the front of one side, like I was talking about, I have a 12 by 15 tarp. So I'm going to use the 15-foot way for the length of it, obviously. So I'm thinking if I make my radius or diameter in the end as long as I can on the 15-foot section of the tarp and then go shorter this way, it's going to stretch me out on that one side. And time will tell on that. We'll see how that works out for us. But it's pretty much what I thought. So we're going to go ahead and take what we've shown on the board. I'm going to lay this tarp out again. I think it costs $20-something, maybe close to 30. It's just an 8-ounce canvas, 12 by 15 feet that painters use for a drop cloth. So I'm going to roll with that. You know, just a cheap teepee. It's not a sun forger, obviously, but something we can do ourselves pretty cheap. You know, if you take your time, put a little effort into it, you probably end up with something nice in the end. And again, we're going to try to natural dye this thing, waterproof it so it'll last us a little bit longer. And of course it's canvas, so you're going to have to keep retreating that over the years. It's not going to be a permanent structure by any means, or it'll probably just go to hell on us. So, you know, we'll set it up, use it, take it down when we're not using it so it doesn't get too beat up on us. So let's get this thing laid out. I'll show you how I'm going to mark that out. We'll cut it up and then a bunch of sewing after that, guys. Alright guys, so we've taken and laid out the tarp. If you can see in the center up there, right there, there's a stick pretty much centered on the tarp. We're going to use that with a piece of bank line to trace out our pattern here with a Sharpie. So we'll show you that next. But I've folded a 2-foot section up at the top, and that's going to be to give us extra for our seam above the door where the lacing pins go, as well as our flaps up at the top for you know, smoke ventilation. So I'll show you that real quick. Alright, so right there you can see I'm about 2 feet folded in on itself, which makes the tarp this way 10 feet now by the 15 feet. So we'll split that in half, go roughly 7 foot, which is the stick I showed you in the middle. We'll trace, you know, a half a circle off in each direction off of that, and see what we come up with. Kind of a pain in the neck, and that the ground, I mean, it's fairly flat, but I got all this grass and stuff to deal with, which makes it a little wavy, so it's not going to be as perfect as I'd like it to be, but I think it's going to work for us. Check our string here. We're about even, so I'm going to have to make another loop here with a Sharpie. That'll work. We'll have some extra material up at the top. That way we can make our door later and add anything we need to add. Straighten this out a little bit better. Like I said, it's going to be a pain in the neck, all this grass under it, but we'll do our best. Alright guys, we got some cutting to do right off the bat, and we'll get this 2-foot flap folded out. We'll lay out our flaps for above the door as well as the smokestack, and I'll go from there. Alright guys, so now I'm going to take and cut along this line. I've folded out that 2 foot that I originally folded in. So I'm going to cut off this first line until I get to the center. Then I'm going to angle it back. We'll keep a little bit of this for our flap above the door, and then we'll trace our door out, get that cut out as well, and show you what that looks like. Just like that. Now again, part of this is going to be the flap, so I'm going to cut right down from the top this way, and then we'll save some of that for our flap above the door, and then we'll have the door obviously. And just so I know I have enough to sew up at the bottom with some additional lacing, I'm going to come in about 8 inches on either side and cut that in as well. Right to that 2 foot mark. There's going to be extra here later, and that's good. I can always trim that off. And then our door is going to start right there on either side. Alright guys, so here's our pattern all cut out. Thinking I may have went a little too big on the door, but that's okay because we're going to put a door on it anyways. And it's looking a lot smaller than I actually thought it would. We got the hole up here where the poles are going to go afterward. We got our flaps up here at the top for the smoke. And flaps right here that go above the door. And those ain't very long, which is why I'm thinking this thing's going to be a little smaller than I first thought, but that's okay. So my original thought was to go ahead and dye it at this stage, then get to waterproof and then sew it up, but I'm going to sew it with bank line. So I'm thinking the big holes with the bank line and the sail needle, those are going to need to get waterproofed as well, and probably re-hit again at the end with some sort of beeswax or fixing wax, something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and start sewing everything up now. I'm going to, do the bottom edge all the way around, trim out, the door area, both flaps, around the smokestack at the top. I might even add some more material into that after the fact, but we'll see when we get there. So all about the sewing now, guys.